The stage of the galaxy. The Zenith Arms Galactic Weapon Expo was unlike any event in the galaxy. A sprawling, immense auditorium filled with the most advanced minds and military powers from hundreds of star systems. Each year, the galaxy's elite civilizations gathered not just to showcase their weapons, but to assert their dominance. It was the ultimate proving ground, a statement of might, power, and technological superiority. Thousands of species, all with their own intricacies, gathered under the high vaulted ceilings of the expo hall, some in ceremonial armor, others in flowing robes of knowledge. Alien engineers whispered behind complex data screens, their minds always racing ahead of what was to come. The air was electric, humming with anticipation and rivalry, each delegate eager to demonstrate the superiority of their culture. This year, however, there was a strange and subtle undercurrent of amusement. The humans were attending. To many, their presence was little more than a curiosity, a gesture of politeness, or perhaps even pity. Humanity was young, still a fledgling species by galactic standards, and had not yet earned its place among the titans of space. Their technology was still crude, their weapons primitive, and their tactics seen as a relic of a violent past. They had been granted an invitation, not because they had proven themselves, but because the galaxy's great powers had no real reason to exclude them. It was, to most, a mere formality, a diplomatic courtesy extended by the old powers to the newcomers. The humans were placed at the tail end of the presentations, their allotted time a mere afterthought. As the show progressed, the crowd watched in awe as each civilization unveiled their masterpieces. The Xendarians displayed their graviton disruptor, a weapon so powerful that it reduced battle tanks to dust with a single blast. The Krexians, a race of sleek and highly intelligent beings, showed off their eye-guided autocannons, which never missed their target, guided with pinpoint precision by their advanced artificial intelligence. The Vern, an insectoid species known for their ability to manipulate molecular structures, revealed their nano-dissolution cloud, an appalling weapon that could deconstruct any object at a molecular level in seconds. The audience gasped in awe at the implications, whispering of its terrifying power. The Cyrax, known for their mastery over quantum physics, presented their quantum phase lance, an energy beam that could bypass any shield by phasing through solid matter. It was hailed as the future of warfare, a clean, efficient weapon that promised to render all other forms of combat obsolete. Each presentation was a spectacle. Each weapon was a marvel of engineering, a testament to the capabilities of its creators. The crowd roared with approval after each display, impressed by the elegance, precision, and lethality of these weapons. It was warfare as the galaxy understood it, sophisticated, clean, and efficient. It was the way of the future. And then the lights dimmed. A pause fell over the room, a slight murmur of anticipation rippling through the crowd. The voice of the announcer boomed over the speakers, clear and formal. Next, representing humanity, Captain Philip Talon of the Terran Defense Forces. The silence that followed was thick with disbelief. The humans, their weapons were laughably outdated, or so the galaxy's powers had thought. There had been no serious consideration of them as competitors. Humanity, after all, was still playing with fire, while the rest of the galaxy wielded stars. A single, polite round of applause came from the farthest rows. It was distant, unenthusiastic, a mere courtesy. The laughter that followed from several sections of the room was even less restrained, full of mocking mirth. The humans were, at best, a novelty. What possible contribution could they make to the future of warfare? Captain Philip Talon stepped onto the stage with a calm, measured stride. He was tall, in his early 40s, with a face that seemed older than his years, marked by the harshness of war and the weight of countless campaigns. His uniform was simple, not the sleek, polished garb of the other species, but a functional, worn combat suit that had seen the fronts of 100 battles. There were no flashy embellishments, no extravagant flourishes to catch the eye, just the practical, well-used gear of a soldier. Beside him, A team of human soldiers wheeled out a bulky, cumbersome object on a reinforced cart. The object was a monstrosity of metal, a series of 6 barrels arranged in a circle, with an ammo belt feeding into its base. It looked nothing like the elegant energy-based weapons that had been showcased before. It was raw, mechanical, and utterly devoid of refinement. The murmurs began immediately. What was this thing? Some sort of relic from a forgotten era. An industrial tool of some kind. A sharp voice came from the crowd. A Zendarian general, mandibles clicking with confusion. By the stars, is that a pipe organ? No, no, a Crexian responded, his emerald scales glinting with amusement. It's clearly a crank-operated grain harvester. Perhaps they've mistaken this for an agricultural expo. Laughter rippled through the audience, hesitant at first, but then growing louder. A Cyrax technician's crystalline body glowed with amusement. Does it run on steam, perhaps? Shall we fetch them coal to keep it running? A Verne weapons analyst shook his head, body quivering in laughter. Physical projectiles. What are they going to do? Poke us to death? A towering Valdurian warrior, covered in thick exoskeletal armor, let out a deep, rumbling laugh that seemed to shake the floor beneath them. This weapon looks like it belongs in a museum. Do humans not understand modern warfare? No one uses kinetic weapons anymore. Shields render them useless. The audience roared with laughter, their skepticism mounting with each passing second. The humans were a joke. Their weapon, a crude relic of a bygone age, had no place in this advanced, cutting-edge arena. It was as though they were still playing a child's game while the rest of the galaxy played chess. Captain Talon stood still, letting the laughter wash over him, unshaken. He didn't try to explain. He didn't attempt to justify humanity's place in this grand arena. He let them laugh, because he knew what was coming next. The weapon's true power. As the laughter continued to echo across the auditorium, Captain Philip Talon stood unmoving. His expression remained stoic, his eyes fixed on a crowd, but there was no sign of nervousness or embarrassment. To the soldiers around him, it was a calmness they recognized all too well. He had seen worse in the battlefield, and this was nothing compared to the ridicule that had come before. To him, this was just another challenge, one that demanded only the smallest amount of focus. He motioned to his team, and the soldiers moved quickly to the device on the cart. The mockery from the crowd, though loud and clear, seemed to fade into the background as the team methodically prepared the weapon. The machine before them was a crude thing compared to the sleek, polished designs that had been showcased before. Its metal frame was covered in scratches, dents, and oil stains, a testament to the countless trials it had endured in the field. Yet, despite its rough exterior, there was a quiet determination in the way the soldiers set it up. The weapon was a minigun, human ingenuity forged through necessity. Designed during humanity's early days of interstellar conflict, it had proven itself time and again in the harshest environments. Its 6 rotating barrels were capable of firing at a rate of 3,000 rounds per minute. To the untrained eye, it looked like little more than a relic of a forgotten war, a weapon built for chaos rather than precision. But Talon knew better. He knew that this weapon was the result of years of human persistence, trial, and error, and it was about to prove something no one in this room expected. The auditorium had fallen into a hushed, expectant silence now. The mockery was still there, but it was beginning to fade as the soldiers worked in synchrony, loading the machine with ammunition and preparing it for activation. Talon took a deep breath and looked up, catching the eyes of the alien dignitaries in the front row. Some of them still smirked, but there was a subtle shift, a flicker of curiosity that hadn't been there before. With a single command, the human team powered up the weapon. At first, the sound was almost imperceptible, a soft hum as the rotating barrels slowly came to life. The crowd could see the weapon beginning to spin, but the noise was so quiet, it seemed almost out of place. There were no explosions, no dramatic sparks flying from the machine. It simply spun. The weapon looked harmless in its dormant state. its deadly potential still hidden beneath its simple, rugged design. But as Talon raised his hand, signaling for the demonstration to begin, everything changed. He shouted one word: "Fire." In that instant, the weapon came alive with a ferocity that startled even the hardened veterans in the audience. The barrel spun at an unimaginable speed, and with it came a deafening roar, a sound so intense it shook the very foundation of the auditorium. Each round fired was an explosion of noise, sending a volley of deadly projectiles through the air. The crowd had no time to react as the weapon began to unload in rapid succession. The human soldiers had prepared a series of static targets placed across the far end of the arena. They were nothing more than inert dummies, designed to withstand the test of firepower. Yet, as the bullets tore through the air, the dummies were shredded to pieces. The sound of impact was almost drowned out by the sheer volume of rounds fired, the rapid thump-thump-thump resonating throughout the hall. Each shot seemed to carry the weight of centuries of human struggle, the struggles of a species that had fought tooth and nail to survive, to overcome every obstacle, to endure where others had failed. One by one, the dummies were obliterated, torn apart by the relentless barrage. But that was only the beginning. The target range was equipped with sophisticated holographic shields, another display of alien technology, meant to test the effectiveness of weapons. The shields were designed to withstand even the most powerful energy blasts, with each one calibrated to resist the most advanced energy weapons. They had been specifically created to ensure that kinetic weapons like the minigun had no chance of penetrating them. After all, physical projectiles were nearly useless against energy shields. It was a fundamental rule of modern warfare. But the minigun wasn't just a weapon of brute force. It was a tool that used human creativity and resilience in ways the galaxy had never expected. As the human soldiers continued to fire, Talon adjusted the settings on the weapon's targeting system. A subtle change, a small, seemingly insignificant tweak. The barrels whirred faster, and the rate of fire escalated. The audience watched in stunned silence as the first shield came under fire. The projectiles hit the shimmering barrier, but they didn't just bounce off. The minigun's high rate of fire created a constant, overwhelming barrage of bullets, each one hitting the shield at a rapid, unrelenting pace. At first, the shield held, its energy flickering under the onslaught. But then, something remarkable began to happen. The frequency of the hits started to break through the shield's defensive layers. Each successive bullet, coming faster than any shield could adjust, began to weaken the barrier. It was a test of endurance, not precision. The shield began to shimmer and crack under the pressure, its energy fields unable to keep up with the sheer volume of fire. And then, just as the shield was about to fail, a deafening explosion erupted from within it. The protective barrier shattered, disintegrating in an instant as the relentless storm of bullets overwhelmed it completely. The audience went silent, stunned into disbelief. The display was nothing short of miraculous. What had been considered an outdated, inefficient weapon was now standing as a testament to human creativity and ingenuity. It wasn't about cutting-edge technology or sophisticated energy fields. It was about persistence, determination, and the human ability to adapt and overcome. The remaining targets were next. The minigun continued to fire, the barrel spinning like a living, breathing thing, tearing through the remaining obstacles with the same relentless power. It was clear to anyone watching that this weapon wasn't just about firepower. It was about the human spirit. And the crowd? They were no longer laughing. The shock on their faces was unmistakable. Some of the more arrogant delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing that humanity had just shown them something far more powerful than they had ever expected. Captain Talon looked out across the crowd. The silence was deafening. Then, in the stillness, the first sound broke through, a low murmur of awe, followed by a slowly rising wave of applause. The galaxy had just witnessed something unexpected, something they hadn't prepared for, the true power of human ingenuity. But for Captain Talon and his team, this was just the beginning. The unseen strength. The applause, slow at first, gradually grew into something more genuine, more profound. The crowd's earlier mockery had been wiped away in an instant. The galaxy's great powers, who had so eagerly dismissed humanity as a primitive species, were now left speechless. They had witnessed something they hadn't expected, something that defied the very principles of warfare that they held so dear. The minigun wasn't about elegance or technological superiority. It was a weapon forged from humanity's raw resilience, unpolished but powerful in its sheer will. Captain Philip Talon stood tall, unmoving, as the audience slowly regained its composure. The applause was no longer out of politeness or mockery. This time, it was genuine, laced with awe and respect. Yet, despite the applause, Talon's mind was already turning to the next phase. He knew the real test had just begun. The weapon had done its job, but the true challenge was yet to come. Humanity's place in the galaxy was far from secure, and this demonstration, though impressive, wasn't enough to earn the respect of the galaxy's elite. It was only a glimpse into what humanity was capable of. There would be those who would dismiss it as a fluke, a mere accident, something that could be explained away. Talon knew better than to assume anything. There was always another hurdle to overcome. It was not the applause that mattered, but the long road ahead, the one paved with doubts, challenges, and the constant struggle to prove that humanity belonged in the galactic conversation. As the minigun was wheeled off the stage, Talon turned to his team. His soldiers had already begun to pack up, moving with practiced efficiency, each of them knowing their role, knowing what was coming next. The work wasn't done yet. The audience was still buzzing with whispered conversations. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy were now exchanging looks, murmuring among themselves. Some seemed impressed, while others appeared baffled. A few were even disturbed by the unrelenting power of the weapon. It was clear that something had shifted in their perceptions, but no one was ready to make any declarations just yet. The next presentation was supposed to be the culmination of the expo, a showcase of the Cyrax's new quantum nexus beam, a weapon that was said to be able to tear through anything in its path, bending reality itself. The crowd shifted with excitement as the Cyrax delegation took the stage, their crystalline bodies glowing with energy. Yet, despite the obvious prestige surrounding the Cyrax, the murmurs about humanity's display did not stop. One Veran analyst, whose insectoid features twitched with visible discomfort, leaned forward in his seat. "Did you see the power behind that weapon? Those shields weren't supposed to fail. The minigun, it broke them. I've never seen anything like it." A Cyrax technician, her form shimmering like a mirage, nodded gravely. "Yes, that's what bothers me. It wasn't just brute force. That weapon had a relentless precision to it. The human mind, it seems, has figured out a way to use simple, raw power in ways that defy logic." The words of the analysts and technicians only added to the mounting tension in the room. For the first time, the galaxy's superpowers were starting to realize something important. Humanity was unpredictable. They didn't rely on the same technologies or tactics as the others. Their strength came from a different place, a place of necessity, of constant struggle, and of an unyielding will to survive. The galaxy's great powers, with all their advanced technologies, had never fully understood the one thing humanity had mastered: perseverance. As the Cyrax began their demonstration, firing their quantum nexus beam at a reinforced asteroid fragment in the far corner of the arena, Talon allowed himself a moment of reflection. The Cyrax's weapon was impressive, undoubtedly. It tore through the asteroid with a bright, glowing beam of energy, disintegrating it into a cloud of vapor. But as the display concluded, Talon's eyes flicked back to the audience, sensing the subtle shift in atmosphere. The galaxy's great powers were beginning to understand something they had overlooked. Humanity wasn't a backward species to be dismissed. They were a force to be reckoned with. The sheer simplicity of the minigun had caused a stir, but it was the idea behind it that truly unsettled the other species. The humans were not bound by the same rules as everyone else. Where others sought perfection, humanity was content to rely on raw, unrefined strength. The Cyrax's quantum nexus beam was a marvel of engineering, a perfect example of technological sophistication. But it relied on the principles of the known universe: energy manipulation, quantum mechanics, the laws of physics. It was a weapon that followed the rules. Humanity's weapon, on the other hand, seemed to break those rules. It was pure force, no tricks, no fancy technology, just an unstoppable barrage of kinetic energy. There was something deeply unsettling about that. For the first time in the Expo's history, the audience began to realize that the true strength of humanity didn't lie in advanced technology or slick design. It lay in their willingness to fight, to endure, to adapt, and to innovate when all seemed lost. The galaxy's great powers had built weapons of elegance and efficiency, but humanity had built a weapon that spoke to the raw, brutal power of survival. After the Cyrax's demonstration, Captain Talon made his way back to his team, his soldiers already packed up and waiting for him. But before he could give the signal to leave the stage, an unexpected voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. A tall, imposing figure approached from the back of the auditorium, a Valdurian warrior, known for their physical strength and their fierce combat prowess. The Valdurian had been observing the demonstration closely, his eyes narrowed, his exoskeletal armor shimmering with barely contained energy. "Captain Talon," the Valdurian said, his voice booming. "I must admit, I did not expect such a display. Your weapon, it's not just raw power, is it? There is precision in its chaos. How did you manage to control that level of fire?" Talon paused for a moment, considering his response. He could see the genuine curiosity in the Valdurian's eyes, a reflection of the larger shift taking place among the delegates. The galaxy was starting to take humanity seriously. "It's not about control," Talon said calmly, his voice steady. "It's about understanding the nature of the battlefield. Sometimes, the most efficient weapon isn't the most elegant. It's the one that can adapt to any situation, no matter how chaotic." The Valdurian stared at him for a long moment, his mandibles clicking as if in thought. "I see. There's strength in the unpredictability. I underestimated your species. You've proven yourselves today." Talon nodded. He didn't need validation from the Valdurian or anyone else. But in that moment, he realized something important. Humanity had finally earned its place on the galactic stage. They weren't just the new kids anymore. They were a force to be reckoned with. And this was only the beginning. A new era of warfare. The hum of voices in the auditorium gradually quieted, but the undercurrent of excitement never truly dissipated. The galaxy's most powerful and technologically advanced species had come to the Zenith Arms Galactic Weapon Expo expecting to witness their superiority reaffirmed. They had hoped to solidify their dominance, to remind the lesser species of their place. Instead, what they saw was a raw, unpredictable force, a species that had not been invited to the table but had somehow managed to disrupt the conversation. Humanity had not merely attended, they had shaken the very foundations of galactic warfare. As Captain Talon and his team made their way off the stage, the reality of the situation began to settle in. The applause, though hesitant at first, had been replaced by serious conversation. Even the most arrogant of the delegates had fallen silent, their attention fixed on the humans, their minds grappling with the implications of what they had just witnessed. No one had expected this. The Valdurian warrior, still standing near the back of the auditorium, regarded Talon with a mix of curiosity and respect. His massive frame, covered in thick, exoskeletal armor, loomed over Talon, but there was no malice in his stance, only a quiet recognition of something important. "I was wrong," the Valdurian said, his deep voice echoing in the stillness. "I dismissed you as a species of little consequence, but you've proven me and everyone else here wrong. That weapon of yours, it isn't just a weapon of destruction. It's a symbol of your people's resilience. I see now that we underestimated you." Talon, though grateful for the acknowledgement, said nothing in response. He had known the road to respect wouldn't be easy, but he hadn't expected the shift to happen so quickly. The reality of what had just occurred was starting to dawn on him. He and his team had made history, but what came next? Was this the beginning of humanity's rise as a galactic power, or was it simply a fluke, a brief moment of triumph before the rest of the galaxy reminded them of their place? As he turned to leave the stage, Talon overheard a conversation between two Crexian analysts, their sharp minds dissecting the minigun demonstration with the precision of experts. "Did you notice the pattern?" one of them asked. It wasn't just the fire rate that made the weapon effective. It was the unpredictability of it. They didn't follow the same rules we've all been using. Their approach was chaotic, but brilliant. It's as if they'd broke every expectation we had and used it to their advantage. "Precisely," the second Crexian responded, their voice low but filled with wonder. "This kind of warfare isn't about mastering energy, physics, or molecular breakdowns. It's about relentless pressure. The human mind, it seems, has developed a method of fighting that we've never considered, one that doesn't adhere to conventional thinking." The conversation struck a chord with Talon. He had known that humanity's strength lay in their adaptability, their ability to think outside the box when faced with impossible odds. But hearing it articulated so plainly by some of the galaxy's most advanced analysts was a revelation. Humanity's approach to warfare was something fundamentally different from the galaxy's established norms. The humans didn't need the most advanced technology or the most sophisticated weapons. They simply needed the will to win, and they would make it happen. The realization hit Talon hard. Humanity had not just survived on Earth. They had fought for every inch of their survival. Their history was one of conflict, of constant innovation born from necessity. In a galaxy where strength was measured by technological prowess, humanity had something far more dangerous: an unyielding spirit, an ability to improvise and overcome, and a sheer will to win. While Talon pondered these thoughts, a familiar voice broke through his reverie. It was General Margot Blake, a seasoned commander from the Terran Defense Forces, who had accompanied him to the expo. "You did it, Captain," she said, her eyes gleaming with pride. "The galaxy's not going to forget what we've just shown them." Talon nodded, though he didn't smile. "It's only the beginning, Margot. I'm not convinced they'll fully understand yet. Some of them are still trying to process what they just saw. We've shaken their confidence, but that's just a small part of the battle." Blake chuckled softly. "I get the sense that we've just created a whole new problem for them. And that's exactly why we need to stay ahead," Talon replied. "They'll try to adapt, to reverse engineer what we've done. And when they do, we need to be ready with the next step. We've opened their eyes, but now we need to make sure they see us as a true force." The two of them fell into step, heading toward the backstage area where the rest of the human team was gathering. Talon's mind, however, was still on the implications of what had just happened. Humanity had taken its first real step onto the galactic stage, and while that was an incredible achievement, the journey was far from over. In the back of his mind, he already knew that the next step would be the hardest. The galaxy's great powers had just seen a glimpse of humanity's potential, and they weren't going to sit idly by. The fear, the ridicule, it was all just the beginning. Now came the hard part, proving that this moment wasn't a fluke, proving that humanity had the ingenuity to not only survive, but thrive in the most hostile environment imaginable. The question now was how humanity would handle the inevitable backlash. The other species would surely begin to question the minigun's effectiveness, to search for ways to counter it. What would humanity do when faced with opposition? Would they double down on their unrefined strength? Or would they evolve, creating weapons and tactics that could rival even the galaxy's most advanced races? As Talon entered the back room, his thoughts were interrupted by a low rumble of voice behind him. He turned to see a small delegation from the Xandarian fleet approach him. Their leader, a stern, gray-skinned figure with long, sweeping tendrils, leading the way. His eyes were narrow, filled with calculation. "You," the Xandarian said, his voice low and steady. "I've been observing your presentation closely, Captain Talon. It was impressive. But let's be clear. One weapon does not make a civilization a threat." Talon met the Exendarian's gaze with unwavering confidence. "And yet, that one weapon just broke your shields." The Exendarian didn't flinch. "We'll adapt," he said, his voice carrying an air of finality. "You won't always have this advantage. But what you've proven today is that your species has potential. If you truly wish to join us in this arena, understand this. The real challenge begins now." Talon smiled faintly. "I'm counting on it." As the Exendarian delegation retreated, Talon's thoughts turned to the future. Humanity had just made a mark, but it was only the beginning of a far larger journey. The galaxy was about to find out just how unpredictable and resilient humanity could truly be. The Silent War begins. The days following the Zenith Arms Galactic Weapon Expo passed in a strange, almost surreal quiet. The once eager buzz of the event had died down, but the undercurrent of tension remained. Humanity's demonstration had left an indelible mark on the galaxy. The superpowers that had once dismissed Earth's people were now forced to reckon with the fact that humanity was not the primitive backwater species they had believed them to be. The seeds of a new kind of warfare had been sown. Captain Talon could feel it in the air. The whispers, the subtle glances, the quiet conversations behind closed doors. The galaxy's powers were not taking this lightly. They had always prided themselves on their technological prowess, their ability to predict the outcome of any conflict with perfect precision. But humanity had shattered that illusion. They had demonstrated that unpredictability, creativity, and sheer will could be just as powerful, if not more so, than the most advanced weapons and strategies. Talon had hoped that the demonstration would be a wake-up call, an invitation for cooperation and mutual respect. But he knew better. The galaxy wasn't ready for that kind of shift. Humanity was too new, too untested, and far too dangerous for anyone to take them at face value. There was no room for allies when the stakes were this high. Every species would now be focused on one thing: ensuring their own survival in a galaxy that had just been irrevocably changed. The first signs of this shift came swiftly. 2 days after the expo, Talon received an encrypted message from General Margot Blake. The tone of her message was stern, but there was a thread of urgency woven through her words. "We've been contacted by the Cyrax," she wrote. "They want to meet with us. They claim it's about discussion, but I have my doubts. We've already heard rumors that they're working on a countermeasure to the minigun. Don't trust them, Captain. They might be willing to talk, but they're not interested in peace." The message gnawed at Talon's thoughts. The Cyrax, known for their advanced understanding of quantum mechanics, were a deeply intelligent species. If they were already working on a countermeasure, it meant they viewed humanity's weapon not just as a curiosity, but as a serious threat, a threat that had to be neutralized. And if the Cyrax were taking it seriously, then everyone else would follow suit. But Talon couldn't let this stop him. He knew that humanity's true strength lay in its adaptability. They had always fought, always survived. The galaxy might not yet understand that, but humanity had an edge, a determination that couldn't be replicated by any alien species, no matter how technologically advanced they were. As Talon prepared for the meeting with the Cyrax, another message came through. This one was from the Viren, the insectoid species that had demonstrated their nano-dissolution cloud at the expo. Their leader, the Grand Matriarch of the Viren, had requested a direct communication. It wasn't just curiosity this time. It was a matter of survival. The Viren, though technologically formidable, were a deeply pragmatic species. They understood that the introduction of a new threat could throw the entire balance of power into chaos, and the Viren were not the type to let chaos reign without trying to control it. The human delegation, including Talon and Blake, boarded a transport vessel bound for the Cyrax homeworld. The journey was a quiet one, the tension palpable. The rest of the crew sensed it as well, the sudden change in the galaxy's atmosphere. It was a cold, silent war now. No one was openly hostile, but everyone was preparing for something. When they arrived on Cyrax, the atmosphere was heavy with the weight of unspoken things. The Cyrax homeworld was a place of beauty, with towering crystalline structures that pulsed with light, resonating with energy that felt almost alive. The city was filled with an otherworldly glow, and the air hummed with an advanced, almost tangible sense of power. But beneath that surface, there was something darker. The Cyrax were not here to offer peace. The delegation was led into a grand hall, a place that could have been mistaken for a cathedral if not for the shimmering energy that seemed to permeate the walls. The Cyrax leader, a figure of translucent beauty and deadly precision, stood at the center. His crystalline body was fluid, a work of art that shifted in ways that made it difficult to focus on any one part of him. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of centuries. "You have made an impression, Captain Talon," the Cyrax leader said. His tone was not hostile, but it was far from welcoming. "Your weapon, the minigun, is unlike anything we have seen before. It is crude, yes, but its potential cannot be denied. We did not come to discuss peace, Captain. We came to discuss the future, a future where your people either cooperate with us or we ensure your species does not become a problem." Talon stood tall, his posture unwavering. He had heard the threats, the veiled promises, and the implications behind every word. He wasn't afraid of the Cyrax, but he wasn't naive either. This meeting was not a negotiation, it was a warning. A warning that humanity's existence in the galaxy was now under scrutiny. "The future of humanity," Talon said, his voice calm but filled with determination, "is not up for debate. We will cooperate with those who understand what we bring to the table, but we will not be cowed by threats. Humanity is not your enemy, but we will fight for our place in this galaxy. And if it's a war you want, then you'll soon learn just how far we're willing to go to defend it." The Cyrax leader's crystalline form flickered, as though considering Talon's words. "You misunderstand, Captain. We do not wish to fight you. We simply wish to contain you. The minigun is a fluke, something we can counter. But your species, you cannot be trusted to wield such power. The galaxy is fragile, and you are not yet ready for what lies beyond your star system." Talon's eyes narrowed. "And what is that? What lies beyond your systems?" The Cyrax leader's expression softened, his voice becoming almost pitying. "Knowledge, power, technology. The galaxy is on the edge of something new. The energy fields you've learned to manipulate are primitive compared to what we have. The Cyrax understand the very nature of the universe. You, Captain, are merely scratching the surface." Talon was silent for a moment, weighing the words carefully. It was clear the Cyrax were not here to offer an alliance. They saw humanity as an unknown, a disruption in the natural order. The threat they posed wasn't from their weapons alone, but from the unpredictability of their species. But Talon wasn't about to back down. "We've seen your power," he said, his voice steady. "But we are not afraid of it. We will learn, we will adapt, and we will survive. You underestimate humanity at your peril." The Cyrax leader's expression hardened. "Perhaps, but mark my words, Captain Talon. You will not stand alone in this galaxy. Your weapon was a fluke, but you are not, and that will be your undoing." With that, the meeting ended, but the message was clear. Humanity had made an enemy of the galaxy's most powerful species, and now a silent war was beginning, one where survival would no longer be guaranteed. The gathering storm. The days after the tense meeting with the Cyrax felt like a slow, grinding march toward an uncertain future. The diplomatic channels had closed with a subtle but undeniable shift in tone. Humanity, once viewed with dismissive curiosity, was now regarded as a potential danger, an unpredictable force that could disrupt the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. The Cyrax had warned them, and though their words had been laced with veiled threats, it was clear that the galaxy's other superpowers would soon follow suit. Back on Earth, the Terran Defense Forces were preparing for a reality they had never truly imagined. A war not just for survival, but for recognition. They had proven themselves on the battlefield of ideas, but now the true test awaited them. The galaxy would not simply allow humanity to carve out a place for itself in the stars. The human race had become a wild card, an enigma that needed to be understood, contained, or destroyed. Captain Talon stood in the command center of the Terran Defense Forces, staring at a large holographic map of the galaxy. The representation was stark and unsettling. Each of the galaxy's major civilizations had their borders clearly marked, and the most critical systems were highlighted in bright, glowing red. These were the areas of highest military importance, the heart of the galaxy's political power. Humanity's position, nestled in a distant corner of the galaxy, was marked as an insignificant speck, but that speck had just caused a tectonic shift. The map was more a reminder than a plan of attack. Humanity's place in the galaxy was precariously tenuous. Talon's mind raced. He had always known that humanity's survival would not be easy, but he hadn't anticipated this level of complexity. The Cyrax had made their intentions clear, and their warning had spread like wildfire. Every species, from the Vern to the Crexians, were now watching humanity closely. The next move was critical. "Captain," General Blake's voice broke through his thoughts. She entered the command center, her expression grim. "The Cyrax aren't the only ones watching us. The Vern have requested a private meeting. They claim it's for diplomatic reasons, but I don't trust them." Talon turned to face her. He trusted Blake more than anyone, and if she said she didn't trust the Vern, then he knew they were likely up to something. "What are they offering?" he asked, his voice low and steady. "They want to discuss the potential for a strategic alliance," Blake replied, "but I suspect their real goal is to leverage humanity's rise as a way to position themselves more favorably within the galaxy. They've already been in talks with the Xendarians and the Crexians, forming an unofficial coalition. It's a matter of influence." Talon sighed. The galaxy's politics were beginning to feel like a minefield, and humanity was stuck in the middle. On one hand, there was the promise of new allies who could provide support in the face of the growing threat. On the other hand, the very same alliances might turn out to be a trap designed to control or manipulate humanity. It was hard to tell who could be trusted, and every decision felt like a gamble. "We can't afford to be naive," Talon said, his jaw clenched. "If the Vern want an alliance, we'll play their game, but we need to be strategic. They're already thinking about their place in the new galactic order. If we don't keep our eyes open, they'll use us as pawns." Blake nodded. "Agreed. But we'll have to be cautious. If we push too hard, we might alienate the wrong species. They'll have their own agendas, but we have to find a way to balance diplomacy with defense. We can't just fight our way through this." Talon's gaze shifted back to the holographic map. The galaxy felt more hostile than ever. What began as a breakthrough for humanity, the ability to demonstrate their power on a galactic scale, had turned into a chaotic scramble for dominance. The Cyrax, the Vern, the Xendarians, each of these powers had their own designs for humanity's future. None of them were willing to share the spotlight. "We'll go to the Vern," Talon said finally, his voice resolute. "But we'll keep our options open. We're not in a position to make enemies just yet, but we'll need to be prepared for anything. I don't care what they offer. Humanity's future is ours to shape, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect it." The Virn negotiation. The Virn homeworld was a place of stark contrasts. Smooth, dark spires of obsidian rock rose high into the sky, towering over the surface of their planet like the fingers of a giant. The landscape was arid and unforgiving, a sharp contrast to the lush, vibrant environments of other species. The Vern had always been a species of pragmatists, but their world reflected something else, a hunger for power, tempered by their deep understanding of the galaxy's natural laws. The delegation from Earth arrived in a fleet of Terran ships, their engines humming with quiet anticipation. Talon, Blake, and a select team of officers were met at the entrance of a massive Verne citadel. The citadel was a labyrinth of smooth, flowing corridors, illuminated by a pale, cold light. The walls seemed to pulse with an ancient energy, a technology beyond anything humanity had yet comprehended. The Verne greeted them with calculated cordiality, their insectoid forms gleaming in the artificial light. At the center of the grand hall stood the grand matriarch of the Verne, a figure of imposing presence. Her exoskeleton shimmered with iridescent hues, and her mandibles clicked softly as she observed the humans before her. Her large, multifaceted eyes gleamed with a mixture of curiosity and calculation. "You come with respect, Captain Talon," the Grand Matriarch said, her voice low and melodic. "But we know that you do not come without fear. Fear of what the galaxy has become. Fear of what we can offer." Talon met her gaze with a calm, unwavering stare. "We're here to discuss the future, not to be intimidated. You wanted an alliance. We're here to listen." The Grand Matriarch's mandibles clicked together softly. "Understand this, Captain. We offer you protection. In exchange, we ask for your loyalty. Your species, though strong, is not ready to survive in this galaxy alone. We offer you knowledge, our understanding of energy manipulation, our advancements in biotechnology, in return for your commitment to a shared future." Blake stood at Talon's side, her eyes narrowing as she listened carefully. The Verne's offer was as tempting as it was dangerous. The technologies they spoke of could elevate humanity to new heights, but at what cost? And what would this shared future look like? Blake asked, her voice sharp with skepticism. The Grand Matriarch's gaze softened, though there was no warmth in it. "You will work with us. Together, we will ensure the survival of your species. The galaxy is not what it once was. The old powers are divided, weakening. But there is strength in unity. And together, we will shape the future." Talon looked at Blake, exchanging a silent glance. They had to be careful. This alliance was an opportunity, but it was also a trap. If they accepted too quickly, they could lose everything humanity had fought for. "We'll need time to consider your offer," Talon said, his voice steady. "Humanity's path is our own to decide. We'll work with you, but only on our terms." The Grand Matriarch nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "As you wish, Captain Talon. But know this, time is a luxury you no longer have. The storm is coming."